I've only just arrived in Perth, having just walked around the world on foot over 569 days. There are little posters up there of me with a beard that were taken while I was in Spain, but began walking in Brazil in December 2006 and walked on foot across South America, then up through Central America, across North America, took the train through Siberia, and then walked on foot from Moscow across Europe and down into Spain. Yeah, I'm in the process now of getting my feet done again, having surgery on those, getting them put back in place. I've got a permanently dislocated toe. So it's a bit of a stressful journey on my body. I did about 15,500 kilometres. Stand back from the mic. And what I did was, the reason I was walking was to walk and pray for unity, specifically of Christians, but just the unity of mankind. And so I was walking and praying as I went, sort of in the same mould as Mahatma Gandhi, and making a stance and just getting out there on foot. I was doing about 40 kilometres a day across through South America and all the way up across around the world. It wasn't exactly the easiest of journeys. Almost lost my life a few times, so I was very grateful to actually get back home again. My first major encounter was with a puma in Venezuela. Came across a puma at about midnight on a country road that I shouldn't have been on anyway. We got about 2 metres away from each other, and then we had a bit of a standoff for a while, a bit of a stoush, before it stopped stalking me and I was able to continue walking on. But from then on, I guess the main dangers I faced was actually people. A number of times held at knife point, stripped clean of everything I had, held at gunpoint quite a few times. Had shotguns put to my head because everyone thought I was American. And in South and Central America, the USA has a pretty bad reputation. I mean, here they haven't got the best reputation, but over there it's to the point where they will kill you because you're from the States. So I had to learn very quickly to say in Spanish, I am Australian, and that was my ticket out of danger a number of times. Mind you, if they shot first, then I had to talk very, very quickly and dodge the bullets at the same time. You know, other things that happen in Russia, being beaten up. I'm 6'5", so it does kind of help in fighting off other people. And I played AFL reserves at Collingwood and Footscray when I was 17 to 19, but had too many injuries, 15 broken bones, including a broken back, so I retired at 19. So I'd learned to defend myself a little bit, but going through Russia, having a Russian in both hands as they tried to beat me up was a little bit different to the normal everyday Sunday walk that you kind of do. But the whole purpose of it was just to walk and pray, and stopped in churches along the way, so stopped with the Catholic churches, Orthodox churches, Pentecostal, evangelical, interdenominational, non-denominational, Protestants, you name it, stopped there. And even met some Buddhist monks along the way. So you know, all I was doing was simply inviting people to set a foundation in praying for unity. Passed a lot of different poverties along the way as I walked. You know, there was a lot of people who had no food, no water, no electricity, and yet they invited me to come and stay in their tin shed with them because no one else was offering me hospitality. So I was quite overstruck with the hospitality of some people and the love that they showed. But that was probably the greatest poverty of all, was love itself, which as I've come back to Australia, now back on Aussie soil, getting used to living life again. Actually, it took me a month and a half before I slept through a night without waking up to check that no one was in my room, that the place was locked. So still getting used to the idea of security again. But the big thing that struck me when I got back is that there is a massive poverty here in Australia that seems to be overlooked, and it's actually a poverty of love. Having been through a lot of communities, particularly in, say, South America, Central America, where they didn't have anything but that. They actually had nothing but love for one another, and yet they seem to be more thriving than our communities over here. So that's now, I mean, I'm now working as a missionary again. I had worked with Youth Mission Team Australia for 5 years prior to walking around the world, and now here with the team again. You just heard from Josh a second ago who was singing. I actually worked with Josh and the Youth Mission Team. So we're actually working with the youth here in Perth and around Australia with other teams, and trying to look at that greatest poverty of all being love. So the walk has come to a conclusion, but I guess the mission in itself is continuing on fairly quickly, actually. I've got a book on the way now that's supposed to be out in about 12 months' time, 6 months' time maybe. It depends how quickly I can write it. But the missionary deal continues as well with the Youth Mission Team, but also looking with a friend of mine going to East Timor at the end of the year to try and build some schools up there. So The big thing I learnt from walking was that there are so many people who just simply want to be recognised or need someone to actually help them in some small way. Even had a guy in a town in Panama where there was nowhere to stay, no hotel, no church, no one was offering hospitality. And late at night, once the sun had set, a bloke came up with his little daughter and invited me to come and stay at his place. And he was one of these guys who had no running water. He didn't have an address. He lived on a tin shed on the side of a hill, had to walk across a stream and up through some banana palms into his house. And he went and found me food. They didn't have dinner for themselves, but he went and found me food, and he found enough for them we shared it. It was a bread roll each and a slice of sausage for dinner, and that was it. And the next morning he went and cut a length of cane sugar for me as my energy. I had 40 kilometres to walk that day, 42 kilometres, and all he gave me was this length of cane sugar because that's all he could give me. But he went and cut some lemongrass and boiled it up and made lemongrass tea on his little campfire for me as well. But at the end of the day, just as the beginning of the morning, at the end of our breakfast, as I was beginning to head off, he went and got his daughter's only toy, which was a dino doll, like Dino from the Flintstones. And he had a little rosary thumb ring around his thumb, and he took that off, pushed it over its head, and attached it to my backpack. And he said, would you pray for me? He said, I don't have any money. He said, I'm married with a little girl. He said, I can't even provide for them. And he started to cry. And he said, no one cares. He said, I don't even have friends here. I live in this small town. He said, no one cares. He said, could you remember me in prayer? So that's kind of stuck, and that happened time and time again as I walked. When you're walking 15,500 kilometres on foot, you do tend to meet a lot of people pretty personally. The unfortunate thing is that it's here in our own society as well. So one thing I'm going to do is the Catholic chaplaincy down here is going to run what they call a Life and Spirit seminar over 4 weeks. A really strong encouragement for anyone who's listening, anyone who's serving up sausages over there. If you want to actually get to a point where you can reach out a lot better in getting to know God and being able to be empowered by God's love, then I'd really encourage you to get along to it. My favourite place, by the way, if you're interested, favourite place for people-wise was northern USA and Canada for hospitality. Went for 15 days straight, being invited into cowboys' houses on their ranches to stay with them. Favourite place as far as environment, probably the Grand Savannah in Venezuela and the beaches of Costa Rica, walking up around there. It was pretty awesome. I only speak English, but I had to learn bits of 8 languages as I walked through everything from Portuguese, Spanish, Russian, Belarusian, Polish, Slovakian, German, Italian, French. So learned to say the basics in all those languages. Sometimes they understood me, sometimes they didn't. And thankfully some of them were pretty similar. When I was being beaten up in Russia, all I could say at that time was, "Can I have some fish, please?" So it kind of didn't help me. It was all, I knew how to say please. So I'm getting thumped in the head going, please, thump. So it took a long time to get used to it. I learned more Spanish than anything. So with Spanish and English I got by, a little bit of Polish. Well, language-wise I went into a store in Brazil I had like a camelback system, so I carried about 4 litres of water on me for the days, and it began to leak, had a little hole in the bottom of it, and began to leak, so I went into a chemist in a small country town in outback Brazil, similar to Kalgoorlie. Like that part of Brazil was not forest, was not Amazon. Get that out of your picture. This was dry, arid country town in the middle of nowhere. Went into the